So this week you have the first draft of your first essay due, the essay about being successful in college. And I've asked you to include 2 to 3 outside sources in your paper. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about that and what that should look like. There are different systems for citing sources in a paper or research paper or essay. And the one we use at OTC in the English department is the Modern Language Association, or MLA format. You may also hear APA formatting or AMA or Chicago Manual of Style. There are different systems for citing sources. They all have a lot of similarities and some differences, but the purpose of each of those systems is really just to keep you from plagiarizing accidentally, including information in your paper that you didn't originally write and you didn't give credit to the original source. So with MLA formatting, it comes into play in 2 different places in your papers. The first is an in-text citation. So what that means is anytime you include someone else's words or ideas in your paper, you put parentheses at the end of the quote or paraphrase or summary with the author's last name and the page number where it came from. Some things you cite in your paper may not have an author, like a website, for instance. If that's the case, you just use the first word that would be in your works cited page at the end. So that's often the title or the first few words of the title. So when you put other people's ideas into your essay or research paper, you can do that in one of 3 ways. You can use a direct quote. So you take the exact words from the original source, you pull them out, you put quotes around them, and you include those in your paper. Typically that is done, I've always heard it said, you put a direct quote in when the original author says it so much better than you ever could. You really want that person's words in your paper or that person's authority in your paper. And at the end of the direct quote, you put the parentheses, last name, page number to show that that direct quote came from someone else. The next way you can do an in-text citation is through a paraphrase. And a paraphrase is nice because you take the original author's ideas, but you put them into your own words. So it's an easy way to make things fit in your paper grammatically and to have the right voice for a second or third person, for instance. I've always heard that the best way to describe a good paraphrase is that it retains the flavor and length of the original. So it's not going to be a lot shorter or longer than the original quote. It's going to be in your own words, however, and it's going to say about the same thing, but in new words. Finally, you can summarize. And you probably won't do this very often in papers because it's just kind of harder to do, but I wanted to mention it because it is an option. So a summary is when you take a large amount of information from an original source and you sort of boil it down to just 1 or 2 sentences. Again, there's not a lot of reasons to do that, but in all 3 cases, direct quote, paraphrase, or summary, you put those parentheses at the end to give credit to the original source. Those parentheses, whether it's the last name or the first few words of the title of the piece, if there's no author, refer your reader to your works cited page, which is an alphabetical list at the end. The title is Works Cited, and then you list all those different citations that you included in your paper, the original source. So it's source material. It's the author's last name and first name. It's the book title or article title. If it's a book, it's the publisher and the year it was published. If it's an article, it's the article title, the publication you found it in, the publication information, including the date it was published and the date that you accessed it. And then for a website, same idea. The web page, if there's an author, often there isn't. So it's often the title of the web page, the website where it came from, the last date it was updated, and the date you accessed it, and the URL address. I have a really helpful guide. I think it's helpful. It's a PowerPoint presentation that is also embedded in Module 3. So you can take a look at that. I'll give you a little hint. I did use examples in that PowerPoint of your textbook, the Eric Morales article, and the Carol Jones Writing Center. So if those happen to be things you want to include in this paper, there are example citations already created for you for your works cited page. And I finally wanted to mention to you a great website, and I'll put this information in writing in your Canvas site as well, but it's called Nightsite, nightsite.com. And if you go to NightCite, it's a generator that will actually create your works cited citations for you. You type in all of the pertinent information, and NightCite creates the citation itself with the right punctuation, the right order, the right italicizing, all of the things that you need to have for your works cited page. NightCite will do it for you. So I hope that helps you understand a little more about MLA formatting. I know it's confusing. Some of you even wrote about that in your initial paragraph that you wrote for me about my history of writing. I always get confused about MLA and APA and how to cite and why to cite and what it all means and the rules. It's confusing. So hopefully I've made it a little easier. Thanks.